Welcome back to our third installation of the Breaking Down the Adoption Barrier series. My name is John Paxton. I'm the VP of Client Engagements with SOAR Performance Group, and I'll be your host today for this interactive conversational session focused on how you can get more value out of your investment in sales enablement as a function, and some real life stories and experiences from the front lines of working with organizations on this topic and how they're able to really drive value through a sales enablement function. So just to link back to something that we shared at the beginning of this series, the real focus of our discussion here and the reason that we decided as a team at Prolific and SOAR to present on this topic at Dreamforce is we found out that the number of organizations with a dedicated sales enablement function has gone from 20% to 60% of organizations, which you would think would have a massive impact in terms of improving performance. But not only is performance not improving, it's actually going down. This caused us to wonder, why is this happening? And as we looked at it, our viewpoint is it's really all about adoption. And so what we're going to share over the next few minutes here is a specific focus on one of the reasons why new innovations, new approaches aren't adopted, which is compatibility with beliefs. So I'm going to introduce myself quickly. My name is John Paxton. I'm the VP of Client Engagement with SOAR Performance Group. With me today as well is Bill Green. Bill, would you mind giving a quick intro for the group before we jump in?
Yeah, thanks, John. Bill Green with Prolific. We're a Salesforce App Exchange partner focused on sales enablement, and I'm responsible for the go-to-market team at Prolific. I've been a career B2B sales professional in the technology industry, as well as spent many years at Salesforce. And so I have a lot of insight that I've gained from my customers and partners, and just as well as some practical experience around the very topic of how to unlock the value of sales enablement as well as adoption to sell more and reduce the admin in day-to-day life.
Thanks, Bill, for sharing that background. And with us as well today is Charlie Paxton, who's the president of our organization, SOAR Performance Group. And Charlie, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background with the group before we dive in?
Absolutely, John. So Charlie Paxton, SOAR Performance Group, and our organization is really focused on helping organizations meet their key goals in terms of driving strategic change initiatives in terms of sales enablement and overall sales operations. So look forward to jumping in with the group today and going deeper on how beliefs play into this process of adoption.
Excellent. And so just quickly a link back there, as we discussed in an earlier session, there are 5 core reasons that new innovations aren't adopted. And the second one, which is what we're going to dive deep on today, is compatibility with beliefs. So now what we're going to do as a group is get some real life experiences from Bill and Charlie and collective customers around this topic of beliefs. And just to link back to what it is, this is really about situationally, does someone believe that a new approach, a new innovation, a new initiative will help them and help them be more successful? So with that as a background, Charlie, I'm going to ask you first, when you think about the problem we talked about earlier, which is more and more investment in sales enablement, yet not seeing a change in terms of results, how do you see this topic of beliefs playing in and preventing organizations from really realizing the value of their sales enablement initiatives?
Yeah, John, thanks for teeing that up. And so a couple things. One is, we spoke a little bit about values last time, and values are very much kind of core to a person. So what are their core values? What do they believe? And is really about beliefs being generated by experiences. And so when you think about sales enablement, while the term might be relatively new, all of us that have had careers in sales have had experience with different, quote, initiatives, programs, departments focused on enabling us to be able to sell more. And so a lot of this experience is based on past experiences and past beliefs that influence someone, whether they actually have the confidence that a new initiative will make a difference for them and for the organization. And when you consider that very situation, we worked with a group large Internet of Things organization, driving an initiative with them. And when we first met with their vice presidents, there was a concern from the vice presidents, could they shift the behavior of their people? You know, they hadn't been able historically to get their people to spend more time on, quote, new account acquisition or hunting activities as compared to maintaining current accounts and farming activities with their existing customers. And that belief became a barrier to trying new things. And so one of the things we had to work with them on is how did they shift their own belief, and then how do they then take that shift in belief and change the behavior with their sales teams. And so a lot of our beliefs are based on past experiences. And so when you launch a sales enablement initiative, I think it's very much you need to understand your audience. What has been their past experience? What have they seen? What have those initiatives done? And that's going to bear on what they're willing to accept for the future.
That's a great point. So I think one of the things, Charlie, you mentioned there is making sure there's that alignment, not just with what is a group's beliefs, but also why do they believe what they do, and making sure that we effectively communicate what's going to be different this time around.
Absolutely.
Good. And Bill, when you think about your customers and deployment of technology, how do you see, this compatibility with beliefs topic? How do you see that playing out in terms of preventing adoption, preventing people from driving a differentiated result?
Thanks, John. I think back to the mid-90s, and I was with a company, and like many sales professionals, been through a number of different methodology trainings. And just as Charlie and yourself were speaking about beliefs, I think that a lot of sales leaders and sales professionals understand what it's like to sit through multiple days of sales training, but your belief is that when I get back to my job after this, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing because this will go away. And in this particular example, I was surprised to find out that they actually had bought some add-on technology to the CRM system we were using, which it wasn't Salesforce, but I won't disclose who it was. And there was an immediate decree from leadership that any opportunity over $100,000 required the filling out of this extensive module that was attached to our CRM. And within seconds, every opportunity over $100,000 became $95,000 in the CRM system. So, what that represented was essentially the sales team rebelling because their belief that the trade-off of the extensive time to figure out that technology, apply the new methodology, wasn't going to help them see success. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about that and how to deal with that. But this is a new dawn and a new day as far as truly enabling sales professionals to have that value trade-off in the favor where the belief system is this will help me and this will drive me to success.
That's interesting. Well, it sounds like maybe the leadership of your former organization probably had some shell shock when they saw that pipeline going down after all the opportunity values started going under 100K.
There's no doubt about it. I won't tell you what the outcome of that was, but it wasn't pretty on any front.
Yeah, but I think that's a great example, though, of how belief ends up driving behavior. And to your point, part of the belief we have to overcome from an enablement perspective is that belief that if I do this, if I invest time in this, there's going to be a good ROI. And I think that's a great point. So, Charlie, from your experience working with clients, those that really do a good job in terms of aligning their enablement initiatives with the beliefs of their organization, what do you see them doing differently than others?
John, I would say that number one is thinking about the sales organization really as their client or customer. So taking that customer-centric view, understanding where the organization is and understanding their specific needs and understanding what do they value, what are their beliefs. And based on that, building processes, tools, approaches that they bring into the organization that actually help the organization execute against its key goals. And ultimately, if you're trying to change someone's belief, because beliefs are based on experiences, you have to let them have a different experience. And creating that different experience is sometimes it's a different experience in terms of how a tool is delivered, that it's easy versus hard, which they may have experienced in the past, how a process is designed so that it is flexible and they can execute against it versus something that may be too rigid. And then most importantly for a sales professional is, do they see wins? So putting in place a way to actually show the wins, show the successes, and share those successes with the organization, because that's how you change an existing belief, is creating new results and new experiences that people can take away and, quote, change their beliefs.
That's really interesting. And so it sounds like one of the other pieces that's really important when you think about this is not just aligning with the beliefs, but understanding if there are beliefs that we need to change, how to put the right kind of approach in place that allows us to shift that mindset and shift that belief for the organization.
Yeah, I would say that is critically important.
Now, Bill, when you think about technology and how technology plays into this, how are you seeing some of your customers overcoming or dealing with this issue of making sure that enablement initiatives are really compatible with the beliefs of the organization?
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, I think the commentary that you and John shared is really insightful. So, number one, which has nothing to do with technology, is just understanding that there are beliefs out there, whether they're right or wrong, and that may or may not have to be addressed. But from a technology standpoint, there's so much more that's available to companies today by way of answering the following questions. Number one is and this is a question I ask, every one of our customers and prospects and others. What is the launching pad from a technology perspective that you want your salespeople to have at their fingertips, whether they're on the road, whether it's midnight, the start of the day, or what have you, to go and really move the needle from their job, right, and or for their job. Now, more often than not, because I spent many years at Salesforce, and Salesforce CRM is very pervasive. That is it, and that's what we see whether you're a small business or a large business. So the question then becomes, so when I look at a company like Prolific for sales enablement, which resides and is built on Salesforce technology, is it really going to help me sell? Well, what's available now, which hadn't been in the past, is public reviews on the App Exchange. Companies like G2 Crowd that are crowdsourced independent reviews. You can get your hands on it, which we'll talk about later, and you can watch videos and see other commentary. So that's very, very helpful. But I think if I had to really summarize it, John, number one is just to recognize there are different beliefs. Number two is that there's different ways for your key opinion leaders and your power users and your sales leaders to evaluate what's going to make sense and what truly is straightforward for their organization. And number three is, to test it out and frankly get that feedback during the evaluation process and beyond.
Bill, thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting. And it sounds like a couple things I took away from that, which are pretty game-changing, is one, that technology has really evolved in such a way that you can help people to visualize how it's going to play into their universe and help them to gain some of that belief a lot earlier than you maybe could in the past. And secondly, there are a lot of resources that help someone as a leader or as an enablement professional to understand what's going to work in their environment and their organization. But most importantly, really getting that baseline around what are the beliefs in the organization before you get too far down the pathway.
Yeah, John, and I think one thing I'd add to that is new, and this is something that Salesforce really revolutionized, is that you can get started today. You can get started in minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You can get started with a handful of users. You can get started with one group and start to learn by doing. Whereas before, it was an epic and expensive IT project that was disruptive and risky. So there's very, very low risk. I mean, your salespeople are doing this stuff around the sales enablement anyways. They're just doing it outside of Salesforce, and they're doing it manually. So there's opportunities and gain to have. So why not get started?
That's a great point. I think that also, when you think about that value equation around sales enablement, which is what we all started with, that's a great way to show some value quickly at a really low risk and low investment, which is a great starting place if you're trying to think about how do you ratchet up that value you're getting from your investment in sales enablement. Excellent. Well, Bill and Charlie, really appreciate you sharing some of that background and some of those perspectives. So on our next session, we're going to talk a little bit about compatibility with experiences, and we link to this in this discussion, but one of the things which is an inhibitor for organizations to be able to really adopt and change behavior is making sure that whatever we do is compatible with some of those past experiences. So we'll be deep diving on some real customer examples and stories from the field around that. If you want to get a jump start on increasing your adoption, two things. One is, if you want to listen into the rest of the series, we have 5 other installments around the reasons that new adoptions or new innovations aren't adopted. You can also reach out to our organization to get a free 30-minute leading practices briefing on sales enablement and what top organizations are doing differently from the core organizations. Bill, if someone wants to get to know more about Prolific and you guys' organization, what's a good way for them to do that?
Thanks, John. Yeah, we talked about getting started. We talked about getting your eyes and your fingers on the capabilities to see it in Salesforce, and so you can do a test drive. You can find that on our website, or you can find it on the Salesforce App Exchange, and that's for Prolific Crush, which is native account planning, or Prolific Ace, which is content enablement.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Bill and Charlie both. Thank you so much for sharing some of your experiences and perspectives on this topic. We'll look forward to having you on our next installment.